Alrighty folks, today we're just going to jump straight into it. We are drawing a flying dragon. So let us start with the head circle here, right hand side of your page, and then we're going to follow that neck, what will be the neck down, and then into the chest, follow the chest down to the hips, and big squiggly tail. Alright, already from our previous dragons, you can see we are drawing straight at a bit of an angle downwards, whereas our previous dragons, in the right little corner down here, their backs have been either a little bit flat or a little bit angled up for those taller back legs, standing on the ground. But today we are flying. So we have our angle, because the viewer is looking slightly up at our dragon today. Alright, this may be a little bit trickier to follow because of that, but I reckon if you stick in there and follow along, you'll be good. Okay, something we love about circles is the following. They are 3D objects, and we can imply that by giving them shape. So you can see I'm tracing around this sort of half moon thing. It starts to look a little bit like a ball. That is exactly what we want. Now this will help get our eye into the different angles of the shapes and the form of the dragon. And that is exactly what we want. So again, if we've got our viewer looking up at the dragon, then we can start to picture that this section of the ball is kind of that underneath part of the dragon. And then kind of that one at the top, because of the neck, it's a bit different. Its angle is a bit different, so we can start to look at how that shading that I've just done adds that kind of sense of form. And that can help us start to place the other elements, like the limbs and things of the dragon, in the right spots as well. So, by the way, this is definitely not a perfect science, and I am not a leading expert in anatomy or anything of the sort. This is just one way of approaching a dragon. So, I think because our dragon is flying, the next thing we're going to focus on is those wings. Now, careful with the size, because the chance of a wing going off the page is extremely high. So, circle here. I'm putting the circle kind of there to show that wing shoulder a little bit. And I want to be mindful that it is going to kind of disappear behind that sphere of the chest a bit, because we are, again, looking kind of up at the dragon. All right, now I'm imagining these wings kind of being, if we come down to the corner again, just do a quick little sketchy sketch. I'm imagining them going like, like out and away from the body. So I might run out of space, which is so classic. But they're kind of flat out from the dragon's body, so they're not angled too far up or down, basically. So I'm going to go a little line across to the elbow, little line angling up, and then again another circle for the hand, and you can see I'm getting perilously close to the edge of the page. So I'm just going to move that down, and then we go out to the wing finger digits. So that lovely curve to the first one, little circle or spike at the end. Now remember, these are like fingers, and our fingers have 2 joints in them before they get back to the knuckle in the hand. So you can go 1, joint 2, end of the wing, joint 1, joint 2, end of the wing, joint 1, joint 2, end of the wing. And then we have the thumb back up here at the hand, and just that little curvy spiky thumb thing, right? Okay, one wing. We have a wireframe of one wing. Let's do the other side now. Thinking again of our 3D sort of effort here, I'm going to draw that other circle on the other side of the neck. I'm going to follow it out, and not as far this time, because it's facing away from us. The distance between each, part of the wing won't seem as far, and that's just because of perspective. So it's making it seem shorter as we draw it. And then out and down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okie dokie. Looking all right. We'll add that little curve of the thumb as well. Cool. All right. Now how about some front legs? So coming down the dragon's body, so we've got the shoulder there. Coming down the body, I'm going to add kind of to the front of that and below it another circle. And I'm just going to go straight ahead and add the other shoulder circle as well, just to get those lined up with each other. And then that's going to have a line, comes down to the elbow, and then up, and then down. And that little, I guess, inverse triangle is the hand. And so the other one will go down to the elbow, up, and then inverse triangle like the hand. Because our dragon is flying, basically what I've done is I've tucked its front legs up. So if we come up to the top here, it's gone down, tucked up, and that. And if I just add a little bit more detail so you can kind of see how that might look, you get a bit of an idea of how that can look. Super sketchy. So you can see already this wireframe is a bit more complicated than the previous ones, but that is gonna be fine. We've got this. So we want to repeat a very similar process for the back legs. So I'm just gonna come in a little bit here. Now remembering that, back legs, if we have a circle, I like to imagine the hip like so. You don't need to draw that. This is just a really basic way of looking at a hip bone from the side. And so you'll have that thigh bone, knee, and then down to the ankle. So I want to sort of do that, but because the dragon's flying, its legs are back, just in the same way the front legs have kind of, hooked forward, the back legs are hooked backwards. So we've got our imaginary little hip there. We're going to go down kind of halfway from that circle. So we're going to go down to the knee and then up to the ankle. It's okay if that hits on your tail, that's fine. And then down again. And that's kind of just a narrow little inverse curvy triangle thing. And then we do that little circly bit just to help us out here, I reckon. Down to the knee, up to the ankle, down to the foot. Now I've just tried to draw that a little lighter because it is the back foot. I don't want to accidentally confuse myself. Okay, now dragon's head. We go back in, we've got our circle and our neck. And this time we're kind of looking at that central point of the circle being further down. And now we can sort of follow the nose bridge out from that. Now I'm working in cubes here to try and make life a little bit easier as we work on a 3/4 angle, and into the cube again, and then another cube back into the circle, sorry, and then you've got your eyes that you can start to work on. So if we were to wing that without a circle underneath, we would be looking at maybe this sort of thing. Like that. So what I'm going to do first is, I think, yeah, let's have a look at that circle, shall we? All right, so looking down. Why did I do that? So that's following, that first line is following the curve of the circle, and I did that basically until it felt good to start a nose. And then that nose goes down, following, I guess, a more intuitive version of the shapes I did before. And once it hits back, so once that mouth has gone back to where I think the circle is, it's then following the curve of the circle again. Because you've got, I guess, the triangular shape. This looks like a beak, but you get the idea. So it's like the triangular shape of the muzzle hitting the circular shape of the face. Cannot claim to be perfect myself with this. The theory is sound, the execution maybe not so much. But now that we've got that there, I do want to place in the eyes just to get a feel for the, I guess, the size of the face. So if the mouth is meeting in this spot, then I feel, and the nose bridge is here, then I want an eye there, and then on the opposite side, I want an eye there. Now, we have got cheeks. Humans have cheeks, dogs have cheeks, everyone has cheeks, chipmunks have cheeks, which is why I'm going to add that little blob. I'm just colouring it in for sake of simplicity to show the other side of the face and the, I guess, the shape, right? Because you've got that eyebrow ridge here that comes out, and then you've got the cheek on the other side that comes out, and then there's the nose bridge. So that's the theory behind the slightly creepy looking thing I have going on over there. Okie dokie. Let's just make it look slightly less creepy with some eyeballs. So from the eye, so following that concept of eyebrows again, I'm just going to draw a little circle above the eye and then a line to follow that around. That's just to help me get to some positioning as well, because I do want to then follow that around the circle and up into a horn. Now, if I just come back and undo some of my crazy efforts over here so that we can then do the same on the other side and you can actually see it. So again, eyebrow circle, trying to keep it even, line back to the next horn. Oops. So 2 horns, 2 eyes, and that follows the circle round. And then the top of the head follows around as well. Okay, so I think now it's time to take this wireframe and the start of a face sketch and make that lighter so that we can then draw I guess, fill everything in over the top. Now, if you've done this in pencil, perfect time to get an eraser and very gently sort of erase over that so that you can still see it, but you haven't got rid of it entirely. If you've worked in pen and drawn paper, then you can go up to a window with another fresh piece of paper, stick your original drawing on the window, and boom, you can kind of trace or work around it. And obviously, if you are on something digital like myself, you can do exactly what I have just done. Okie dokie. So, flying dragon, let's go. Let's do this. All right, make my little pencil a little bit smaller. I'm going to start with the face this time. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the eye here. And I've kind of got the ability to do that because you can see the overall structure that I've already started with. So I'm not going to copy this exactly. I'm going to start with a nice little curve. And then again, that nice little curve under there. And give us a little pupil. Oh, this dragon's going to be cute, I can tell. So that eyebrow circle I had there, I'm not going to like do line work for the whole thing. I'm just going to suggest at it with these little bits of drawing. Now I want to get that nose proper, so I'm going to do that next. Slightly higher than the drawing under it this time. And then when we get to the end, I'm going to do that little nose bump. Not all dragons have nose bumps, by the way, but while we're here at the very start of this kind of dragon series that I'm doing, I'm just going to stick to some classic dragon tropes. That little one I've just done there is to show the top of the bump, whereas that dark bit that I first did is the nostril. All right, following that down, curve the curve to a little beak point, I suppose you'd call it, and then up, and then in, with a little curve at the end, just very gently. Now, just like any smiling creature, we're going a little cartoony today, I suppose, I'm just going to add a little extra bump there, and then the bottom of the mouth, coming out, it's sort of following the curve of the mouth, the top part of the mouth, and then connect that in. So we have an open mouth dragon today. The chin comes down with a little divot back up, and then just follow the line perpendicular until you hit that circle. And that's where we're getting to the cheek and the jawbone again. So we're coming out, following the circle around a little bit, until about you're at the height of the top of the eye there. All right, other side, harder bit. So we're not drawing the same eye, like exactly the same, right? Because it wouldn't look good with the perspective or the angle that we've got. So I'm drawing, I guess it's kind of like this, 2 slightly curved curves that meet in the middle, and then I'm going to join them with a curve. But in this case, I should point out that the nose bridge is getting in the way, right? So we start with the first curve, and then curve around the edge of the eyeball until we hit the nose bridge. And then you can spend however long it takes to get that eye in the right spot. It can take a while sometimes. Right. Hopefully that looks all right on your end. So this is going to get that little cheek going as well, which you can follow from underneath, and then that eyebrow, because this eyebrow, we're going to go to the eye that's finished. If we follow that round, add another little curve there, it can kind of go down to the corner of the eye a bit. So we're thinking that, because that will be poking out a bit, so we want on this other side to show that as well. And then that can follow along the top of the head. And another way that might help to take the head into the neck is to, between these eyebrows, you start your curve over the top of the head. Again, you're good just following your circle there. All right. Now, horns. So following that eyebrow, and then of course if you've got the other end like I just did with that lovely little Cleopatra line, you can follow your horns up. And then do that on the other side. Cool. I'm just going to go down into the mouth here and give my dragon a bottom tooth, I reckon. Yep. Not sure if the other one's really going to show up too much. All right, cool. So another thing I'm going to do here that can help actually is recognizing that the neck itself is a cylinder, right? So if we're thinking of cylinders, I'm just going to hop a new layer on so you can sort of see this a bit better. So we've got that bit there where the neck is joining the body. And if it's a cylinder, and we follow that up and in, then we can reasonably say, we can like reasonably guess at the different angles that go on all the way down. And so we know that where the bottom of the dragon is, this little line I'm drawing here, is kind of like that like southernmost tip, you might say, of the neck. And see, that will connect and follow along with the chest and that sort of 3D-ness of the chest as well. And if they all match up congruently, it'll look like we've dealt with our 3D space really well. So I'll just make that low opacity as well so we can follow along on the top layer, color black again. All right, so down we go, down, down, down to the neck, and then you down, down, down to the neck. Perfect. And that's starting to join. So you can see I've just started to show here where that like rounding is happening as the neck hits the body. Cool. All right. Now I'm going to do the underside of the neck like we were just doing. So I'm going to follow that little line down again as well, and then give that a curve as it hits that circle of the chest. And I'm just going to do that again here from the top of the cheek, like jaw, and follow that down as well. And when that hits kind of the circle of the chest, also stopping that. And that gives us the underside of the neck in just a really nice way, so that we can start to tell, I guess, the different shapes on this dragon. All right, shoulders, because these front legs are going to get in the way of the chest. So, whoops. So I'm going to follow the bottom curve of this shoulder, and then I'm going to do another little curve here. And actually, don't go too far, because the curve of that leg coming up will get in the way a little bit, right? So this whole thing won't be able to go down to the elbow, because it'll, if I cross over, you'll see that they get in the way of each other. So if you did do that, you can just erase that kind of, the bits that cross over basically, and then you've kind of got your shape anyway, if you see what I mean. It looks a bit funny like that, doesn't it? All right, fixing that up a little more. So as you can see, we're covering like a 50-50 split from that wireframe. So just like get to that ankle, another little bulge to show the curve of the ankle. Now this is the funny bit. So all I've done so far is this beautiful triangle. It tells us basically nothing. We obviously are doing a bit of a paw, claw, hand thing here. So let's practice before we commit, shall we? So we've got that, and that's that shape. So out to one. This is just like the wings, to be honest. So one joint, two joint, claw. One joint, two joint, claw. One joint, two joint, claw. So following that, one joint, two joint, claw. Following that, one joint, two joint, claw. One joint, two joint, claw. One joint, two joint, claw. Now claw, I'm going to start on the outside here because these are all like angling away from the viewer, right? So I'm going to start with one little curve. So curvy triangles, just cut them off when you kind of get to your the end of your little line, and then it's just a little circle following the shape of a circle like a paw, and then doing the same here to head back up to what would be the circle of the ankle. And then of course you can see how that's going to overlap with the forearm beneath it, so just connect that up. Cool, not too bad. All right, so now we've got to get back up to the shoulder from that elbow. So from that shoulder up here, we want that nice strong bicep, and that circle you can see there, just following around the outside of that. Let's get rid of this little guy. Boop, 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 boop. All right, so now it might help just to show you the curve of the chest is going to come down. So obviously we need a nice big chest on a dragon, or at least this dragon, for our flight muscles. But now you can see under here, we've got that shallow circle of the other shoulder. So I'm going to follow that, but I am going to just acknowledge that it does connect to the body. So instead of just drawing it out like that, which wouldn't look quite right, I'm just going to connect it a bit and then follow it around. Go down, up, around the ankle and down. And then I'm going to start the thumb. So around claw, and then first one down, knuckle, claw, knuckle, claw, knuckle, claw. There we go, and then in. Right. So that doesn't quite, you don't quite see all of the paws, and that is because it's now on the other side. We cannot see it. Okie dokie. Very good. Let's now get those wings underway. So big wing shoulder, again following around that circle. Again, nice curvy muscles. Now, because we're looking at the underneath, actually, we are going to see a bit more of how it joins to the body. And so you've got that muscle there that we've just sort of gone around. We've also got, I guess because it's an arm, it is a bit like our arms, in the sense that if you raise your arm up and you can see how the muscle is connecting from your chest up to the underside of your shoulder, and we're trying to draw that here as well. So we're going to just draw from this top bit here, just around down to the chest. And then from under there, we're going to do our next curve up to that elbow. When that then comes down to the rest of the body, so you can see the little spine and the circle we have down there, you want to like slowly take it down. And that would be, if you're a human, you're looking at your trapezius muscles, and we're seeing that kind of in action because we've got the wings out. But to finish off the wing now, circle around the elbow, forearm curve a little bit. Actually, I got that the wrong way around. The bigger curve is on the inside, smaller curve on the front, and then up to the claw. All right, and then down to then the hand, well, wing hand, wing claw, what you want to call it. So very similar to before. 1 knuckle, 2 knuckle, 3 knuckle, knuckle into the hand. 1, 2, 3, claw, doop, doop, doop. Whoops, a bit too far there, that doesn't quite work. Just erase that. And then into the hand. All right, and then whoop, 1, 2, 3. You can see that the intervals in these do change as well. I mean, as our fingers get shorter, obviously those intervals get shorter too. So we're just kind of working off pretty much the same principle. 1, 2, in. Cool. All right, I'm going to just now connect those up with the wing membrane. Nice big curves. Now again, up to you where you want the wing to join. You can join it down there if you want, or you can do what I'm going to do and join it down near the hip, which is down here. Again, I like to do that because it gives the dragon a bit more, I guess, wing real estate, and it makes it feel to me like the dragon would fly better. So, connecting down there, looking pretty good. Wing going into the hip. I'm going to bring back that lovely joint. Nope. Sure. Why am I doing this? Again, to me, it's just something I prefer, that the dragon has a little bit of membrane between its elbow and its wing. That's why I'm doing that. Okie smoke. Let's get that other wing done, shall we? All right, so I'm just going to follow in my little brain that chest circle around, and I think that's kind of where that shoulder might start to poke out behind. So I'm going to follow that up, elbow up, little hand, and then down from that wrist back to the elbow, and then back down towards the body. And then, oh, yep, I'm doing a lot of wibbly wobbling today. You'll probably notice as you get used to drawing that that's something you'll do as well, because it just makes it a bit easier. Now, that does seem to look a little bit odd, doesn't it? We love mistakes. They help us learn. Let's try that again. Zoom out to get a better view. Perhaps following that line as I did wasn't the best idea. So I followed it maybe too close to that underdrawing. This time I'm going to go over the top a bit more and try it that way. See if that, see if that helps. And now back into putting that little curve, and now obviously those fingers. 1 knuckle, 2 knuckle, spike, and following that back, and 1 knuckle, 2 knuckle, spike, doop-a-doo, doop-a-doo, 1, 2, and one last one, heading back in towards the body a little bit more. Boom. My phone's going off. All right, angle of that wing. I'm gonna just start that membrane from there and follow it back up towards the thumb. And this is where I'm still learning. I'm gonna have to silence my phone, am I not? I think I shall have to do that. All right, boop-a-doo, boop, silence the phone. So, thinking of that hip down there and where this one's joining, I'm just going to try and imagine that maybe that's going to be about there. And I'm going to follow that without drawing it necessarily, because we won't be able to see this stuff. Follow it. I will draw it for your benefit, actually, and I'll just erase it in a second. And then out towards the wing. And then Okay, actually I'll zoom out. So the reason I did that was to try and make sure that where the wing did join, or like a start to appear from behind the body, at least made sense from the trajectory of where it would have connected on the other side of the dragon, where we can't see it because of the angle of the drawing. So that's why I've done that. I want to try and make sure that it's not completely out of place. Honestly, the best way to make sure it's not would be if we had like a 3D model, we could select the angle like that and it would show things in 3D space really well for us. Alternatively, of course, you can look at photos, references. But this will get us started for now. I can already kind of see what I would like to change, actually, which I'm going to do first. That just isn't looking right. That angle looks wrong, especially if you think that one... I think I've drawn it backwards, actually. So let's draw it facing forwards like this one over here is. So now I'm just going to start from that, draw it forward, and try it that way. That's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. Oh yeah, rear end of the dragon. So we've got our little leggies down the bottom. So that hip circle that you're seeing here, I'm going to use that as our guide. So from this side of it is where that quad muscle is going to kick in. And that's going to go down towards the knee, bump for the knee. Shin bone is facing down, so that's going to be a little bit more straight. Then we've got the ankle. And now where that wing is coming down to that circle, I'm now going to follow that down in a curve as well towards the back of the knee. And then we've got that bulge of the calf muscle. You can probably observe your own legs for a look at that. And then up to that heel and then down. So if that's the heel, right, then we've got toes straight away. So I'm just going to go like a little tube and then boop, and then that little bump, which is like that foot pad bit. And I'm going to do the same again. Bump. Bump. And connect that up. Cool. Pretty good. So now I'm just going to make sure we can connect the body a little bit. And we haven't done much of that in our wireframe, actually. So my apologies. Do follow. So I think actually if you can see my grid here, I'm going to make it a little bit, whoops, yeah, a little bit darker just so you can see a bit better. So this grid line here is actually, if I zoom out, you can see that actually doesn't look too bad. It's pretty close to what we want. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to follow the curve of that chest and continue it around. So that subtle curve, it's only subtle. You can see the straight line is only here, right? So it's a very subtle curve. And then it's just going to, subtle curve up towards the leg and then connect. Not too bad. All right. So just to fill that in a little bit, I'm going to go from the armpit here of the dragon. See, I've added that little bit there. And again, following the curves. So if we've got the dragon's back, which you can see that little wireframe there of the spine. So I'm just going to do a line above that. See how that's also like that lat muscle I mentioned earlier? That is coming out from behind the lat muscle because the back is behind it. So I'm just going to follow that light line down to the wing. Very good. And then I'm going to follow that stomach down to just the top of the leg. See how I've left that little divot? So you can just add a slight curve up there like that, which shows the leg connecting to the body, I guess above the stomach. And this line here, which is that bottom point of the stomach that we were using it for, we also kind of want to keep that, but you can see that can go there. Not too bad. Cool. Brilliant. Now, I do think that last back leg might be a bit easier to draw if we get the tail out the way first. So let's do that. Now, if we're following the actual body, you can see that circle under there again. Here, I'll go back to my blue for this. Whoop. Back to the blue. So you can see that circle there. I've just drawn it a bit bigger. That circle there. We've got, what's another way of putting this? So you can see this shoulder up here actually, and this shoulder here. You see how there's like that angled line between them. Hips are closer together than the front legs. So we can do a similar thing and do that, and then like ascertain, right, that the leg would flow like that out from behind it. But in doing that, we're also seeing the flow of the body and how that as a tube would come out as well, like the tail. So if we follow that, you can now see where we would put the tail around the wireframe line. So there's only a slight amount above it, but plenty below it. I'm just going to do that all the way up. So let's make that, lower that opacity down again. And put you back to black. Draw it out. So tail, you can see that line coming down here. I'm just going to go real quick. Sometimes quick, big strokes are much smoother and nicer than little ones. So we'll see what we can pull off here in one go. Ching. I don't know. That looks a bit weird. Try again. There we go. All right. Well, now I can't quite wing the next one because I do need it to stick close by. So I'm going to do it in sections. Oh, yeah. See, twisting the canvas around to get a better angle for me. I'm left-handed, by the way, so you might, if you're right-handed, be turning it all opposite directions to me. And then connecting that tail tip up. Perfect. There we are. All right. So that other back leg. Maybe something really simple. Let's try that. Back to black. So, doop, doop. There we go. We'll just see how that goes. Let's get that purple out the way. And to be honest, we can get our wireframe out the way now too. Boop. There we go. This pesky little arrow's still hanging out. All right, let's just get that grid back down. Q. It's almost invisible again. All right, we're at the stage where do we fix that wing? So I think what's bothering me is that you can see the whole like arm, but the angle of the wing seems like it should be a little bit more side on. So maybe like that. Whereas it's pointing forward quite a lot, and that's probably not quite congruous with, you know, like flight, I suppose. So I think a simple fix, and to just improve it. So we've got that line. So it's the trick is in the membrane here, I think. And I want that membrane to be more forward. Kind of like that. It helps a little bit. So what I've done there is that membraney bit is now basically all of that bit. Angles. It's not perfect, but you get the theory. Right. A good dragon needs scales, features, spikes, things like that. Go wild. Have fun. Maybe we'll just try some regular spikes. Now, when you're doing spikes like this, it's a good idea to try and keep them, at least the big ones, the same kind of rough distance to each other. Because if you're looking at this from a skeletal point of view, that's a terrible looking vertebrae. My goodness, who am I? But a spike would be coming out of the top of each vertebrae, and so they would all be, I guess, a vertebrae's difference from each other. when they poke out of the top of the dragon. So, and as they get towards the end of the tail, it can be, I guess, like following natural phenomena to make them like smaller. And I want to give this dragon something nice on the end of its tail, so I'm going to go with this really cool like leaf shape, but with that chopped out bit. Following that down, just these lines are just to add, I guess, a sense of texture. All right, let's give this one some more spikes up the top of the head. Let's say the spikes start maybe a bit down the neck this time, so here, and then there, there, and there, and then littler ones down the back of the neck. And we can't quite see them again because of the angle of the dragon. Right, cool. How about some scales? Yes, we've already got the underbelly underway, so let's do that bottom bit for the tail as well, like we did in the last two videos. Just kind of, it's not dead center of the tail, as you can kind of see. It's pretty close to dead center, but just underneath, really. And then there we go, down to the tail. Now I reckon this dragon might just have kind of more patchy scales. So you can kind of draw these like funny little oblong, wobbly oblong shapes in lines with each other. If you are into the Wings of Fire series, you'll have seen this in Joy Ang's illustrations on a few of the dragons as a way of showing like major scales. And let's go back up to the head because there's not too much going on here at the moment. I think I might, do I want to give them spikes to the top of the head? Yeah, that looks kind of cool. All right, so I'm just going to draw the bottoms of those and then, so erase out the middles. Oop, that actually looks kind of cool. I quite like it. Brilliant. Now we need maybe some of those underbelly scales. Now, again, we want to follow the contour of that cylinder. Oh, I'm going to give them slight spike. Yeah, slightly triangular ones, I reckon. Keeping them roughly evenly spaced. And then now that they're here, might help to work from the middle out to follow the shape of the body. This can get quite tricky, so you know, when you're learning 3D shapes and things like that, it can be really helpful to get this sort of thing right. And then again, just trying to pretend where these might be. I'm kind of like, you can't see it here, but I'm hovering my pen over and drawing them out without actually drawing them in order to try and follow the right line and distance when it's behind something, so that when I get to the point where it's not behind something, and then following that up the tail, patiently, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 11. Dragon. Cool. I reckon some nose spikes. So we're going for this little triangle look, like so. I'm going to do that up the nose. And here we are. Does this dragon have ears? Or nah, I don't know. I'm going to draw a little divot there to kind of show the top of the head and where an ear, like an ear hole might be. Okay. Brilliant. You know what we haven't done in any dragons yet, of the two that we've already drawn? Wing patterns. I quite like, you know, these scales. So I'm going to just kind of take that idea and on the wings, add them to the wings. These are just lots of round curves, fluffy cloud looking things that are joining together. And if you colour your dragon in, you can obviously have a whole bunch of fun with that. Yeah. Cool. Rightio. There we go. One flying dragon. I think I might just add a little right down here, just the edges of those scales to give it a little bit more shape. I also kind of want to do that on this bit of forearm, upper arm rather, and then again down there. Yeah, that's nice. There we go. Maybe a little bit more up in the wings here. Who said dragons can't be colourful or shapy? Cool. There you go. And that, my friends, is a flying, spotty dragon. I hope you've had fun. Thank you very much for sticking along with this one. I found this one quite challenging. Oh my gosh. But that happens. That is art. And we proceed. It does not matter how hard it gets necessarily. The trick is that we are powerful and we keep going and we keep making our art. And it doesn't matter if it looks silly one day, there's always a really good chance that it'll look really good another day. And then the more you do this, the quicker you'll get at sketching and getting your vision on the page much faster. And scribble dragons will turn into much more refined, lovely dragons. Oh, look, these guys could all be dragon tails. Look at this. Wow, I'm a dragon. Wow, I'm a dragon. Wow, I'm a dragon. Oh my gosh, I'm a dragon. You get the idea. Have a great day. And don't forget to, I don't know, what's that button? The subscribe button. If you like this, please say hi another time. Thank you.